Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here, and we are back with a brand new build video for the Elder Scrolls Online, just in time for update 33. This is going to be our Unkillable Nightblade Blood Knight build, and this one is pretty insane. It's a bit of a hybrid, combining sword and shield as our main offensive weapon, using the new and improved Power Slam in combination with a lot of Nightblade's blood magic and shadow skills. So this build is tanky. It has big damage spikes and a ridiculous amount of automatic self-healing and heal over time. The setup is also fairly simple, no mythics, no trials gear required, and it's just a lot of fun to play. So that said, let's jump right into it. Alright everybody, we are back on the Stamina Nightblade with a brand new build for update 33 and the Ascending Tides DLC. This is a good one. This is our Unkillable Blood Knight build. A lot of great self-healing, survivability, and offensive potential on this build. It's a lot of fun to play too. So let's go ahead and jump into some of the buff stats here. Very quickly, let me use a potion. Bar swap, here we go. So about 14k max magicka, 27k max health, 30k max stamina. Recoveries are very good. Weapon damage is about 5,000, 5,200 or so self-buffed. That'll be close to 6,000 once we have all of our procs and our back bar glyph set. 50% crit chance right now. That'll go up to about 55%. And then our armor does go up quite a bit once we use any of our shadow abilities, which we have several. And also, once we proc our set there, so armor is pretty solid as well. We have a couple of heavy armor pieces actually mixed with medium and light. So I'll show you how that works in just a minute. But we are a stamina-focused Nightblade, so that's 64 points into max stamina there for your attributes. As far as food, we're using our Teum Takeaway Broth. This just gives a nice balance of stamina, health recovery, and stamina recovery. Pretty good option for this build. You could also use the blue quality health and stamina food if you feel like your recovery is good enough. It might work on this build, honestly. As far as Mundus Stone, we've got the Thief Mundus for that extra crit chance. Is going to be ideal just for solo content, making sure you're getting as much crit chance as possible. Now, as far as potions, you will want a weapon power potion just to make this optimal. I'll give you some options for skills that can give you the same amount of buffs for free if you want, but the easiest way to run this, the most powerful way, it's going to be with the weapon power potions. And then as far as the race, I think there's some good options on this setup. I went with Orc here, and I think that's going to be ideal because you get max stamina, you get max health, which is going to be important on this build. A little bit of extra healing, which is nice. And then obviously the extra weapon damage, which is what all our abilities are scaling off of for this particular setup. Now, if you want to be more survivable, if you want more defensive options, I think Nord's going to be very good. If you want more damage, specifically like crit damage, you could do something like Khajiit. Honestly, you can make this work on pretty much any race in the game right now, but I'm going with Orc. I think it's a nice balance of stats overall. And that's the basic setup. So let's go ahead and talk about the gear sets next and make this work. So as you heard in the intro, this is a sword and shield focused solo build for the Nightblade class. So I wanted to do something that was very focused on that weapon skill line. And so I picked up the Knight Errant set from the base games. This set is pretty interesting. It gives a decent amount of stats actually for solo builds. You got health, you got stamina, you got weapon damage, all that's good, plus 450 extra weapon and spell damage, 2 your one-hand and shield abilities, plus you get a free heal anytime you use those sword and board skills. We'll talk about the skills more in a minute. We are using Power Slam as our main spammable DPS skill on this build. That means it's going to get boosted pretty high by this particular set. It's also going to give us a nice heal back. For AoE situations, we're going to end up putting on a couple more sword and shield abilities. So it is nice. It's a nice flavor set. I think it works pretty well on this build also. And it's heavy armor, so it does increase your survivability, especially when you start using those body pieces. So I did decide to use the chest here. Heavy armor chest and legs. And then 3 pieces of jewelry. So we got the Knight's Errant necklace and 2 rings. Weapon damage on all of these. I've got 2 bloodthirsty enchants and then 1 infused enchant. This does come with the healthy enchant by default, which is not ideal. So I would recommend transmuting those if you want to make this build a little bit more optimal. That's definitely the way to go. Second set, we're just using New Moon Acolyte. And I wanted a crafted set So I could play with the weights a little bit more. I am using, I believe, 3 pieces of heavy and 2 medium and 2 light. So using a crafted set really helps out with that. If you're not familiar with New Moon Acolytes, pretty good solo set, pretty good offensive bonuses here. We got crit chance, weapon and spell damage, offensive pen, and then more weapon and spell damage, plus the cost increase. We are just front barring this though, so luckily that doesn't really affect, most of our front bar skills are pretty low cost to begin with. So we got the feet in medium. We got hands and waist in light. Reason why we want some light is just for the light armor passives. They're really good, both for offensive stats and for cost reduction and recovery. So that's 3 pieces, right? And then the other 2 pieces on our front bar are going to be made up of our sword and our shield, or in this case, an axe. The one-handed weapon doesn't matter. You don't get any specific passives for running different one-handed weapon types with sword and shield. So just whatever you can craft there. Went with the precise trait for a little bit more crit chance, and then divines again for a little bit more crit chance on the front bar since we are using Thief Mundus right now. So that's our second 5-piece set. In terms of the enchant here, you can use Absorb Stam for a little bit of extra sustain, or you can use the double damage poisons. This is going to be a good option just for increasing your DPS slightly on this build. Let's go ahead and talk about the monster set next. Magma Incarnate is a very, very powerful set. This is one of the best new monster sets that's come out recently in the game. Great for this build. You can see we get both sources of recovery, which is great since we are using both types of abilities quite extensively. And then for the 2-piece bonus here, when we heal ourselves or a group member, we get Minor Courage and Minor Resolve. So that's a bonus to our weapon and spell damage and a bonus to our armor. So really nice buffs all around that we wouldn't get normally on the Nightblade. I mean, you can get Minor Resolve, but we're not running that skill. So this just gives us some nice extra bonus stats. This is great for group content as well, as if you want to tweak this build, turn it into a tank setup, or if you want to get into PvP with this, you're going to get some nice group buffs from Magma Incarnate as well. So definitely check out that set. Highly recommended. Like I said, one of the best new monster sets in the game for sure. We're using a heavy helmet there just to maximize our armor. With the health enchant, a little bit extra health is good. And then the medium shoulders here with the stamina enchant. Like I said, divines on everything. And we have max stamina as all of our enchants, except we have 1 health enchant. And you can play around with that a little bit. I do like to have a larger health pool on this build, especially when playing solo, because we're not running any damage shields. So there you go. Last but not least, I almost forgot, Maelstrom Bow on the back bar just to increase your damage a little bit. If you don't have that, you can just run Maelstrom on normal. You should definitely get it. It's one of the best arena weapons you can get in ESO. So that is our Blood Knight setup. One more time, I will show you. We got Knight Errant, 2 pieces on the body, 3 pieces jewelry. We've got New Moon Acolyte, 3 pieces on the body, 2 for the front bar weapon. Magma Incarnate is the monster set, and then, of course, Maelstrom Bow on the back bar. Jump into the skills next and see how this works. So I call this kind of build, it is like a hybrid setup, but it's more like a stamina-focused hybrid. So the majority of our skills, you can see everything except 1 on the front bar here is going to be a stamina skill. And we just have some powerful magicka abilities thrown in here. All right, so let's go through these and explain them one by one. So first up is Killer's Blade, Assassination skill line. Just a great execute. Does great damage. It gives you a nice burst heal, by the way, and you get some good passives from running this. So definitely recommended. And it gives you a execute when running a sword and shield build. So it kind of works out really well on the Nightblade. Next up is Ambush, another great skill from the Assassination skill line. This is a gap closer, so it's definitely nice for getting some distance. It also gives you the Empower buff, so some extra light and heavy attack damage. And it debuffs your enemy with minor vulnerability, so that's going to increase their damage taken by 5%. So very nice overall. Then we have another Assassination skill. This is Relentless Focus. That's our last ability here. This charges up your weapon and spell damage, basically, or you can let it go after 5 stacks for some big burst damage and some big healing. I definitely recommend you do that. Then, of course, we have Power Slam, which is our one-handed shield spammable. This did get a nice buff in Update 33 and Ascending Tides. It does huge single target damage. It's low cost, You can buff it by blocking. So anytime you block your next power slam, it's going to do 33% more damage. And the big thing now is this is now considered bash damage. So it'll get buffed from things like your champion points or other gear sets that buff bash damage. Plus, it'll interrupt casters, which is awesome. Really great ability, especially for bosses that do a lot of casted abilities. This is really cool. And of course, it's being buffed quite a bit by our Knight Errant set. We're getting the extra weapon damage and the extra healing from using this skill. And then our last normal ability is why I'm calling this the Blood Knight, and that's because we have Swallow Soul. We got some blood magic on this build. This is from the Nightblade Siphoning class skill line, first ability here. And this is doing magic damage, plus it's healing us. A lot of health every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. Now, why is this effective in this update? Well, it's because all abilities, all damaging abilities in ESO, once this update hits, update 33, those are going to scale or increase in power based on your highest offensive stats. So if your highest stats are weapon damage and stamina, which they are on this build, then this Magicka skill is going to do the same amount of damage as a stamina skill. Same amount of damage and same amount of healing, since the damage basically equates to the amount of healing that you do. So this is really good. Now, we're not going to be spamming this. You can see we get a nice 10-second heal over time. So as long as we're doing this just once or twice per rotation, we get that juicy heal over the entire rotation. We don't need to use it more than that. You can use it as your main DPS. Let's say if your stamina is really low and you don't want to waste stamina anymore with Power Slam, you can totally switch over to using this. But like I said, once or 2 times per rotation should be good. And then last up, another assassination skill is going to be In-Cap Strike for our ultimate. You guys know this if you know anything about Nightblade. It's really good. Gives you some nice sustain. But the damage here is huge. 20% more damage for 6 seconds. And it only costs 73 ultimate to cast. So you're going to have this up a lot. And it's going to increase all your damage. We'll talk about this more in the rotation section of this video. But basically what you want to do is you want to cast In-Cap Strike first to give you that 20% bonus damage. Then debuff the enemy with Ambush. That's 5% more damage. Then hit him with Swallow Soul. That's going to make sure you get as much healing as possible from that. And then you just totally burst them with Power Slam and your bow proc if it's ready. So really powerful front bar skills on this build. I definitely like it. Back bar bow, let's talk about this. Couple of options here. Piercing Mark is another assassination ability. We do want this for passives. By the way, you want assassination skills on both bars if possible. But this also debuffs a boss or something like that. Major Breach is a very important debuff. This is free as well, so it helps a lot with sustain. Now, it is just single target, so if you are sort of grinding your way through a dungeon, you're trying to grind XP, multiple enemies at once, I'd recommend swapping this out for something like Caltrops. Razor Caltrops specifically gives you that Major Breach debuff and an AoE, a pretty large area. But for bosses, since this is free, I recommend Piercing Mark. Then we, of course, we have our bow ability, Endless Hail. This comes from the bow skill line, second skill here. This is really just to proc our enchant, our damage glyph on the back bar. Not sure if I mentioned that. You do want a damage glyph on your bow. Drop this skill. That'll give you 600, 650 extra weapon and spell damage. And then Refreshing Path. This is another really powerful magic ability on the Nightblade. That comes from Shadow, and that's your third ability here. I did go with the Healing Morph, and check this out. 2k health, that's unbuffed right now. So this is a really sizable heal in a pretty big area underneath you. It also gives you Major Expedition, so it's nice for running through a dungeon faster or something like that. So you'll definitely want this in your rotation just for the extra heals. This build is all about self-heals, you guys. Super strong healing potential. Then we do have an emergency heal called Dark Cloak, and that's also from Shadow. This is a very strong heal. Once this crits, it gives you huge healing potential, and it gives you minor protection for 12 seconds, so you'll take less damage. Very good emergency heal. Make sure you use that when you need to. And then Leeching Strikes is our final normal ability. That comes from Siphoning. Second to last ability here. So this is just some extra healing with light and heavy attacks, which is good. You'll see once we check out the rotation how much healing we have on this build. It's huge. But we also get the stamina sustain, which is really good. 4k stamina after this effect ends, plus bonus stamina on each light and heavy attack. Final skill here, of course, is our back bar ultimate. Could do lots of things here. You could do like Meteor. You could do Flawless Dawnbreaker. I like Soul Tether. It just fits sort of the theme of the build. Siphoning health from our enemies, right? Does a lot of AoE damage, and there's also an AoE stun. So this actually, if I know like a boss or something has a lot of adds that are coming with it, I might save up my ultimate for this just to proc that stun on all of those basic enemies. It's going to be very helpful, especially if you're trying to solo some more difficult content. So definitely recommend that one, Soul Tether from the Siphoning skill line. All right, so let's do a quick rotation just to show you how this works. Now, you will have to buff a few things here, starting with Relentless on the front bar. Keep your potion up as well, and then Leeching Strikes on the back bar. Go ahead and debuff the boss. Get our dots and our heals rolling, and then if your ultimate's ready, go ahead and fire that off before you use your skills. So Ambush, Swallow Soul, there's our Power Bash, and then once your Relentless is ready, go ahead and fire off the bow as well, and then swap back. Rebuff here on the back bar. Make sure you maintain that debuff. Again, Swallow Soul, a couple of Power Slams. Use your Relentless when it's ready. Got my ult back again, so I'll go ahead and save that for the next rotation here. So again, ultimate, it's going to buff everything. Your Ambush, Swallow Soul, your Power Bashes. You can see the bash got a nice interrupt there. Go ahead and bar swap back. Keep an eye on that Major Breach. Make sure you buff that. There's another Ambush. Let me go ahead and bash interrupt. Rebuff Relentless. Getting close to execute here, so I'm going to just apply my buffs and my debuffs one more time. Should be all I need. Let's see here. It's in execute range, so that's when we can start using that executioner skill. And let me go ahead and interrupt. There you go. So, super easy. Lots of healing. You saw all that healing over time coming in. And good sustain, too. Really no problem. All right, let's jump into passives next. What do you need to make this build work? Basically, all the Nightblade passives are really strong. We'll want to make sure we are using all of these. Master Assassin is good for the extra penetration. Executioner is huge, especially if you have adds. 1,000 Magicka and stamina back when an enemy dies. That's a lot of sustain for sure. Pressure points, this gives you more crit chance. Really good on the front bar since we have so many assassination skills there. And then Hemorrhage, of course, 10% bonus critical damage done. You want this passive. So to make this work, you need one assassination skill on each bar. Of course, we have tons on the front bar, but that's why we're running Mark, Piercing Mark on the back bar to get that bonus on both our bars. Shadow skill line. This is pretty interesting. Refreshing Shadows, totally great passive. Make sure you get this pretty early for the extra recovery. Shadow Barrier, this is where we get our armor. So we get about a 10-second major resolve buff for using any shadow skill. So you can see, if I swap here, that basically lines up with the duration of Refreshing Path. So as long as you're casting this every 11 seconds or so, you will be getting your full armor buff. So this looks like that. You can see the armor buff popped up, my buffs down there, plus I'm getting the nice heal. So having that in your rotation, like we talked about, that's your armor buff. Dark Vigor increases your max health. That'll mostly be active on the back bar. And then Dark Veil you will want. That's going to increase the duration of your shadow abilities on the back bar. And then Siphoning, of course, this is actually really important. These are all awesome. Actually, Catalyst gives you ultimate. Make sure you get that early on. Magicka Flood increases your max Magicka by 8%. We actually are using a lot of Magicka skills, so we will want a Siphoning ability slotted on both bars to get that extra 8%. That's why I've got Swallow Soul on the front bar, and then we also have Leeching Strikes on the back bar. Soul Siphoner increases healing. That's actually good. And then Transfer gives you ultimate back. Also very good. Yes, you will want Sword and Shield passives, obviously. That's your front bar weapon. Then you want the bow passives for your back bar. Now, we are using all 3 armor types, so it would be ideal to kind of max these out. I'll just point out some of the best ones here. So for light armor, Evocation gives us 8% Magicka recovery plus 4% Magicka cost reduction. That's really good. Prodigy gives us some extra crit chance, and Concentration, some extra penetration. Very good passive as well. Medium armor, we're using 2 pieces of medium, so we get extra crit damage. We also get extra stamina recovery and stamina cost reduction, as well as some bonus weapon and spell damage. That's good. And then you will want all your heavy armor passives as well. Wearing 3 pieces of heavy now. This is just some good defensive and sustained passives. All right, in terms of guild skills, we're really not running any guild skills to speak of on this build. The main thing you will want to work on is Undaunted, and making sure you max out Undaunted Metal. That'll give us 6% more health, stamina, and magicka, since we're using all 3 armor weights. Very good. Then, of course, your racial skills and alchemy, medicinal use for the extra potion duration. Hopping into our champion points next. We'll have the full breakdown of this on the written guide for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP. So you can, no matter where you are, there should be something there to help you get started. But let me just point out the basic slotted stars. So in the green tree, we've got Treasure Hunter, Rationer, Liquid Efficiency, and Steed's Blessing. In the blue tree, we've got Deadly Aim and Master at Arms. This is going to buff our single target damage. So most of the damage on this build is single target, whether it's Swallow Soul, Power Slam, even our Executioner. We're going to get some nice bonuses from this, as well as Fighting Finesse for the extra critical damage and critical healing. That's really good on this build. And then something you might not have tried before, but you should definitely try on this build, Reaving Blows. So when you deal direct damage, you heal for 7% of the damage done. Like I said, there's a lot of direct damage on this build. Basically, almost everything that we do, whether it's Power Slam, Swallow Soul, Executioner, even the Bow proc from Relentless Focus, and light and heavy attacks, all will heal you for 7%. Even your ultimate in-cap strike heals you with the Reaving Blows slotted champion point here. So this is actually really good. It ends up giving you a ton of healing coming in addition to all the other healing. That's why this build is basically unkillable. So many heals coming in. Definitely recommend you try this one out. It's really good. And then, of course, some stats here. You want Tireless Discipline, Eldritch Insight, and some defensive stars also, like Quick Recovery and Preparation. Like I said, all these are in the written guide if you want to check those out in more detail. And then the red tree, there's some interesting things here, actually. I am doing the 3 basic stars here, so Boundless Vitality for the health, Fortified for the armor, and Rejuvenation for the recovery. And then Bloody Renewal for the stamina sustain. But I would recommend you check out this right side of the tree for more of the block and bash passive stars. For example, Bashing Brutality increases your bash damage by 120. This actually applies to Power Slam, since it is technically a bash. In Update 33, you can actually buff that ability through this CP star, which is pretty good. So again, all the details will be in the written guide for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP. Finally, we can go ahead and check out the outfit style here if you're wondering. This is basically all heavy armor, and it's a mix between the Ancient Elf, so like the Ancient Elf chest and feet, and then also the Ancient Orc. So I've got Ancient Orc legs and gloves. The helmet here is the True Sworn style. That's also in heavy armor. And if you're curious about the weapons, the sword and shield here, that's the Fargrave Guardian style. All right, everybody. And with that said, that's going to wrap up our Blood Knight Stamina Nightblade, Hybrid Nightblade. I don't even know what to call this anymore. It's just a fun Nightblade build. I really have enjoyed testing this out on the PTS. And once Update 33 goes live, I think you're going to enjoy it quite a bit too. So there is some gameplay here in the background in case you want to see a little bit more. This is actually one of the bosses for one of the new dungeons coming in Ascending Tide. This is Shipwright's Regret. It's a very fun dungeon as well. Definitely check that out if you're interested. Of course, if you have any more questions on the build, make sure to check out the full written guide. Link for that will be in the description, where we have things like alternate gear sets, alternate skills, full list of passives, champion points for 300, 600, 900, 1200 CP, a whole lot more there over on the website. Definitely check that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to crush that like button. It's a big help for the channel. Make sure you're subscribed if you like this type of content, if you want to see more ESO builds. We definitely have quite a few more of those planned for this next update, so keep an eye right here for those. And if you want to support the channel even further, check out our YouTube membership. Lots of great perks over there, including early access to videos. And our members-only build library, we'll be updating that this patch as well. So there you go, one more build in the books for ESO. Hope you enjoyed this one. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.